So, good morning everyone. I am Jennifer Mundihar from BC English 2B, and I am going to continue the report of Miss Martinez. So, the next one and the last one is the subject guidelines. So, what is subject guidelines? At many universities, colleagues tend to own subjects through a tacit recognition of the histories and efforts in developing them. Hence, teachers learn to make changes that are incremental and strive to sustain our long-term efforts. So, when taking stock in shift in teaching approach, initial assessments of the possibility may center on how much the subject is established in terms of teaching staff, enrollments, or coordinators. So there is a table attached here, which is the table 4.5, the design considerations in blended lesson plan development. So there are three design factors. First is the aim for learning, second is the blended task or the technology dimensions, and the last one is the assessment for learning. So the first one is the aims for learning. There are two sub-factors, the program and the syllabus. So the first one is the program. Program description is how will learners use a target language and what task will achieve those aims. In syllabus, identify the skills, knowledge, and personal qualities that the syllabus aims to develop through the completion of the lesson. So, we already know what is the syllabus because it is already introduced and given by our instructor in every subjects. The next design factor is the blended task technology dimensions. So the first sub-factor is the actions. It is seek to vary narrative, interactive, adaptive, communicative, and productive pedagogies decide the rules of the participants, particularly the teachers. So the actions is it's either narrative, interactive, adaptive, or communicative and productive. Next is the groupings. This is also a part of the blended task technology dimensions. Groupings clarify how subtasks are completed by individuals within a pair or a small group or a team. So when doing a task, teachers is testing his or her students by giving them a task which can be completed by a group, individuals, a pair, or a small group or a team. Next is the spaces. Select location for activities to be conducted. It is very important for the students to have a space in doing their activities and in conducting their activities, of course. Next is the timings. Sequence the task and how students join asynchronous or synchronous. So when we say asynchronous, it's either it is okay and you are not, and the students is not ang estudyante dili siya ginapugos kung musulod ba siya sa klase o dili, but importante gyapon kung makasulod siya sa, for example, sa Zoom, sa Gmeet, ingana. Then, ang synchronous, mauna ni siya nga, when you choose a synchronous, you are responsible to attend Gmeet or class. Okay, the next one is the texts. Nominate the key resources for learning: videos, images, written texts, oral texts. So, these texts, mauna siya katong more references nga ginahatag. For example, or this report is gikuha lang namo ni siya through the resources nga gihatag ni Ma'am Paredes. So that is considered as the text, the resources for learning. Next is the tools. Configure the devices, software, and furniture with the physical and online spaces where the action occurs. So this involves the technology because as we are now in a blended learning, though it is the combination of face-to-face and online learning using technology, the presence of technology is very essential with this kind of learning. Since with this kind of learning, since the face-to-face is very limited lamang. So next is the last design is the assessment for learning. So first sub-factor is the links. Identify modules of learning that students have previously completed. So assessment for learning, this is also mao na siya katong mga test, pre-test, mga nga naka Google form or katong mga no. Assessment for learning can also be para sa atong mga Google form, katong mga previously completed sa mga students. Next is the format. Specify how and through which mode the assessment is to be submitted by the students. So format, for example, in our other subject, which is handled by Ma'am Samantha, she gives us a format of the assessment before we submit it in the Google classwork. It is because she want our assessment to be neat and to be arranged in order. Next is the criteria. Announce the rubric that will be used to evaluate the submission. So criteria, this is the thing that that the teacher used in order to grade the assessment of the students. Next is the evaluator. Nominate who will be responsible for assessment: student themselves, a peer, an instructor, or a combination of these. So, meso-level considerations. At the meso level of design, teachers must attempt to make alignments of classroom practices with the policies of course and instruction. Meso-level considerations touch on overall institutional policies and graduate attitudes, faculty or departmental guidelines, and a course structure. At this level, teachers must make efforts to implement design elements that take into account the specifics of a single subject with the concerns of diverse colleagues. In graduate attributes, at the institutional level, an awareness of graduate attributes, or in some institutions, graduate outcome can help to inform design decisions. It is according to Somshan and Goodfellow 2004. Many educational institutions have published statements of graduate attributes as a way to signal the expected outcomes of a completed course of study. So the aim of this area of consideration is to create learning activities to shape and populate each lesson plan. These answer the questions: what does a degree from the institution with attention and blended language learning signify to employers and other stakeholders? So the next area of consideration is the departmental goals and curriculum structure. In conjunction with establishing links to larger institutional goals, members of a program may want to consider the degree of expected involvement in the curriculum change. A range of factors can impinge on the success of planned blended approach. So this aims to develop a coherent and defensible plan for each integral period of instruction. This answers the questions: to what extent does each member of the department need to be involved in the curriculum change? Aligning in the integration of technologies up and down an entire course of study is yet another consideration. Ideally, we see learners gaining proficiency in information technologies in tandem with their language skills, moving from an individual-centered mastery to an increasingly social one. In addition, these also have an aim to align each of the subjects in a course of curriculum within a major area of study. And it also answers the question: in what ways does the use of technology in one subject or several subjects contribute to the completion of the language major? So let's move into the risk management. So risk management, at their core, effective design processes involve innumerable selections and justifications. At the start of design processes, it is worth considering risk management strategies. A failure to consider design principles may result in wasted efforts and wasted efforts. So, the aim of this area of consideration is to avoid expensive mistakes in time and fighting. So, let us um, what is risk? So, risk is simply defined as the potential for danger, harm, or loss. More formally, risk is the product of the likelihood of an event and the exposure of loss if the event occurs. So, some possible risks that may arise in blended learning program are working alone, lack of experience with teaching technologies, and program ends after a short time. So, according to Lienz and Larson, to best manage risk, they suggest paying attention to issues that may arise throughout the process of development in a proactive manner. So, the ethical vision. Thinking about the ethical dimensions of design choices may help to guide decision-making processes. A number of issues arise when technologies are used across a wide variety of human endeavors, including those concerned with educational practices, according to Tavani 2007. So the aim of this ethical vision or the area of consideration is to focus on students' education and learning above commercial or school considerations. And it answers the questions, what vision of the instruction will lead change in a proactive direction? So let us move into macro level design considerations. So first, what is macro level? So macro means understanding where you want to end up before you begin. As Bespoke ELA explains with a metaphor, the macro of building a house is understanding how many rooms you want it to have, what feel and theme you are trying to achieve, your cost projection, and its overall appearance. So macro level design is viewing first the ending of the certain situations or the ending if the certain curriculum will be implemented. So it is very important because when you first understand the before scenarios, it will also affect the the exact or the ending of the implementation of the curriculum. For example, if you think that you are going to implement this curriculum and you are thinking that if you implement this curriculum, it will cause chaos to the students and teachers and also to the schools. So if you see that that scenario will be happen if you implemented that certain curriculum, of course you will see what will happen, and you can also decide if it is really important to be implemented or not, or if it is good for the school, teachers, and students if it is implemented or not. So that is the macro level. The international and national standards. Standards speak to the wider community, especially those outside of the field of second language learning, about the need to allocate resources that support educational innovation. So next is the regional and association policies. Many other regions of the world and individual countries have developed foreign language standards for nations involved in the Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation or the APEC Forum. Technologies are put in a positive light, especially because of their potential to link and engage learners. In the United States, a coalition of professional language of learning organizations developed the standards of foreign language. This is according to the ACTFL 1996. So the standards that are commonly known as 5S acronym that stands for communication, cultures, connections, comparison, and communities. So there are two broad descriptors. So first is the standard 2.2, or the students demonstrate an understanding of the relationship between the practices and perspectives of the culture studied. The second standard, or the second descriptors, is the standard 5.1, which is students use the language both within and beyond the school setting. So other large professional language teaching organizations such as the Teachers of English to Speakers of Other Languages, or the TESOL, have established guidelines for language instructions. So here are the brief summary of the draft goals intended for teachers. So the first goal, or the goal number 1, is to acquire and maintain a foundational skills and knowledge in technology for professional purposes. The goal number 2 is to integrate pedagogical knowledge and skills with technology to enhance language learning and teaching. So goal number 3 is to apply technology in record keeping, feedback, and assessment. Goal number 4 is to use technology to improve communication, collaboration, and efficiency. So, the last one is the professional development benchmark. So, the designers of the TESOL explicitly recognize the need to promote professional development. As such, they intend the framework to be used incrementally as a way to encourage educators and teachers and students to work with technologies in classrooms, online, or in a blend of the two environments in a way that are interrelated to support both sides of the learning equation. So that is all my report, and thank you for listening.